she matches with this guy named Jesse Kempson. Now let's take just a moment to talk about Jesse. There's quite a bit to say about him, actually. He was born on December 28th, 1991, and he was from a town called Wellington in New Zealand. she gets up and gives him a chance to take a look at his phone, he sees her Facebook profile and he comments on it, something about her looking beautiful or gorgeous. Now don't forget this because it's important. This is where he is connecting himself to her on that evening. Okay, so by but he went his separate ways from her. And I believe that they did find him because of that Facebook post. I'm not 100% if there might have been more to how they found him, but that is what I believe from what I've read. So anyway, he's released. But while he's there, explains that it took between 4 and 5 minutes of strangling her for her to actually die. That cannot be an accident. But, yeah, it is pretty hard to say that that was an accident. She did have bruising on her arms from restraint. And she probably didn't sign up for that either. Now also, witnesses for the prosecution would come forward who were women from his past who he had actually raped, physically abused, emotionally abused. An old girlfriend, a long-term girlfriend he was with for a while. They had all terrible stories of his behavior. On November 22nd of 2019, he was found guilty, and he was sentenced to life in prison with the chance of parole at 17 years or not before 17 years. He did appeal, but his appeals were denied, and I would think that they're not going to let him out in 17 years. I just don't think so. Now, in addition to this murder charge that he got, 2 of these women who came forward to tell their stories, they also were able to win cases against him. Between the 2 of them, he got another 11 years to be served concurrently with his first sentence, with his life sentence. Now, sadly, the father, shortly after his daughter was murdered, he was diagnosed with cancer, terminal cancer, and he did wind up dying from it in November of 2020. So that is extremely, extremely heartbreaking. I can only hope that he was a religious man and felt comfort that he was going to join his daughter. No, but I don't really know. But for the family, that must have been just one more horrible thing that came out of it. And they did feel that the stress of this whole thing, made his death quicker. Now, one good thing, I guess you could say, that came out of this was that in England, not in New Zealand at the time, that from what I've seen, but in England, you can no longer use the rough sex defense in court. It's no longer a thing. Like, you cannot try that as your defense. Another thing I wanted to mention is that the Prime Minister of New Zealand had a press conference where she profusely apologized to the parents and the family and the friends of Grace for what had happened. And you could see she was close to tears, apologizing that this had happened in New Zealand, and that it should never ever have happened. So you really, if you watch that video of her, it's real. You know what I'm saying? It's not like these fake politicians that you often see. It is real. So that is the whole case. Now, what do I think of it? I think, once again, we're talking about a situation where the guy just had no conscience, no soul, been traveling alone, she probably wouldn't be